All right. Welcome to the Sustainability in Wine Country online series hosted by Cork and Fork in Logan Circle, Washington, D.C. My name is Antoinette Londejon, and it is a pleasure to be with you today. We will start this class with a brief introduction, followed by our guest speaker's presentation and introduction to their organization. This is the 9th masterclass in the Sustainability in Wine Country series, focusing on sustainability in viticulture. The first masterclass of this series addressed the efforts made by the New Zealand wine growers in their sustainability movement. The second was with the Lodi Rules team and Dr. Stephanie Bolton. The third was with the Fish-Friendly Farming Certification Program of the California Land Stewardship Institute, hosted by Laurel Marcus. The fourth was with Dr. Marty Longbottom, the Sustainability and Viticulture Manager at the Australian Wine Research Institute. The fifth was with Anna Britton and Napa Green. The sixth was all about South African wine and their sustainability movement, hosted by Jim Clark. The seventh was a wine tasting with Wine Australia's Head of Education, Mark Davidson. The eighth was the Porto Protocol with Marta Mendoza. And tonight it is Wines of Alentejo. The Alentejo Regional Winegrowing Commission was founded in 1989 as a private institution dedicated to certifying, controlling, and protecting the Alentejo PDO and Alentejo PGI wines. It is responsible for promoting the Alentejo wines, both domestically and in selected international markets. Alentejo is the only wine-producing region in Portugal with a sustainability program, volunteer and free of charge. Funding for the CVRA comes from the sale certification seals to be placed on the back of the label of Alentejo bottles to guarantee the origin of wine. Our host for this evening is João Barroso, Sustainability Manager for the Wines of Alentejo, part of the Alentejo Regional Winegrowing Commission. He has a degree in environmental engineering from ULHT in Portugal and a master's in science in environmental management and policy from Lund University in Sweden. He has over 18 years of experience in the environmental and sustainability sector, having lived in and worked in Europe, the Middle East, and in Australia. He has worked on a variety of projects, such as environmental impact assessments, pollution prevention, cleaner production, environmental and waste management, green buildings, climate change and sustainability reporting, and more. Currently, as coordinator of the Wines of Alentejo Sustainability Program, he manages and monitors the sustainability performance of the biggest wine region in Portugal, researching and implementing best practices and promoting experience exchange between members of the program, both growers and producers. We are excited to introduce you, our viewers, to Wines of Alentejo, the sustainability program they have, and we are delighted to now begin the presentation. Thank you all for being a part of the Sustainability in Wine Country series. We hope you enjoy it. João, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Antoinette. Thank you, everybody. I will then start my presentation. The idea here is to talk a little bit about Alentejo in itself as a region, and then move on to the sustainability program. Welcome. This is bem-vindo in Portuguese. It's our way of saying that we're very happy to be here with you. And we're going to start briefly with a one-on-one on what is Alentejo for the people who may not know. We're located in the most western part of Europe, and we're in southern Portugal. And we do excellent both white wines and red wines. The whites are intense, have a very original nose, very fruity, and often slightly acidic. And the reds have a bouquet of very ripe fruits and are very balanced and are very unique kinds of wines. So I strongly suggest everybody to try our wines because they're quite unique. To understand a bit of a picture of Alentejo in a world context, so we have approximately 21,000 hectares of farm vineyard land, and that represents 0.3% in the world. Okay, So 3 in every 1,000 hectares of vineyard in the world are planted with grapes. And in the EU, we represent 0.6% of the total hectares planted, being the EU is around 197,000 hectares. But in Portugal, we do represent 10%. So things change slightly, as you can see, from 0.3 to 0.6 to then 10.6. So out of a total of 170,000 hectares, 21,000 are Alentejo. So in terms of the local and regional and national perspective, we are indeed, in fact, the biggest region of grape growing in Portugal. So this is the region. It is divided in 3 main districts: the district of Porto Alegre up in the north, Évora in the center area, and Beja in the southern part of Alentejo. And Alentejo as a whole also represents a quarter of Portugal's surface. So we are indeed a very significant area for the entire country, not only in wine producing, but also in other economic activities and also in tourism, in the tourism weight for the country. And Alentejo is a mix of cultures, as Portugal is indeed a mix of cultures. So our base culture comes from the Lusitanos, which were people that lived in the peninsula in around the Iron Age, so up to 60 before Christ. Then obviously the Romans, that basically our heritage of all Western countries. We are based on Roman and Greek cultures. So the Romans were in Portugal indeed for almost 5 centuries. Then by the fall and the decay of the Roman Empire, we got the invasions from the so-called barbarians of the north. So we had the Visigoths that also had a huge influence culturally in Portugal. But then, and above all, maybe the Moors, so the Arabs that passed the Mediterranean coming from Morocco, and that were placed in Portugal for around 5 centuries. So we got a very strong influence, and you can see from these images, you have both the Roman heritage, the Arab heritage, and also a bit of the Neolithic aspects of the culture. And even the name Alentejo is derived from the Arab, and it means beyond Tagus, being Tagus the biggest river we have in Portugal that crosses pretty much the Iberian Peninsula. And so Lisbon is above Tagus and Alentejo is beyond Tagus, so thus the name comes from there. And then Alentejo has all of these sub-regions for wine. So jumping into wine, what brings us here tonight. So tonight for me and afternoon for you. So all of these regions, we have 8 DOC regions in Alentejo. As you can see, Porto Alegre, as I was mentioned, up in the north. So area DOC1, and then all the way down Évora area, and then down to 5, 7, and 8, where we have the low Alentejo, where the capital is Beja. As you can see in the image on the left side, so you have Lisbon. For you to understand, from Lisbon to Évora is approximately 115 kilometers, so it's a 1-hour drive. It's something quite accessible from the airport. So jumping into what really brought me here and what was really the motive of this lovely invitation, to talk a little bit about our sustainability program. So why WASP? So WASP is the short, the acronym for Wines of Alentejo Sustainability Program. And why now? Well, Alentejo consistently has the highest summertime temperature in all of Europe. So we are struggling every summer with temperatures that can reach up to 45, 46 degrees. So we're not planning for climate change, we're actually living it. As you know, the COP26 is right now happening as we speak. And we've been, very active and very concerned about this issue for maybe not 26 years as the COP has been around, but definitely for at least in the last 2 decades since the beginning of the 21st century, that things have been really accelerating in terms of, on one hand, how we see and how we perceive the changes in climate, but at the same time, how we see that our own performance in terms of sustainability, and not only for climate change, bear in mind, climate change is obviously a deal breaker, but everything that comes with climate, with sustainability in terms of optimization of ecosystems, of resilience, of regeneration. So every of those aspects have been part of our concerns since a while now. So then in 2015, this project was indeed launched. And I have this image on the right side here because often sustainable development is portrayed as either three pillars that should be in balance or a center area where sustainability is. And me, I come from the Scandinavian school of thought. And so in Scandinavia, sustainability is regarded, as you can see in this image, as an integrated approach between indeed those three main areas. So you have a core, which is economic development, because it is indeed the society that we, as a species, have decided to live in the last 150 years. That's the ruling modus operandi. And then obviously from that all spawns. And so obviously then the social development needs to be encapsulated within this economic development, but nothing of this will ever be able to work in a balanced, integrated way if there is not indeed environmental protection, if there is not indeed a healthy environment that will allow us to thrive as a species. So obviously then in 2015, we decided to launch this program that has a very strong environmental and social aspects, as well as obviously taking the line of the economic performance of the industry. So this is a program that, and I'll make a disclaimer from the start, we didn't reinvent the wheel in Alentejo. We went around, we shopped around to see what was going on in the world of wine, because it made no sense to really reinvent the wheel. The wheel had been invented and reinvented several times. So we basically went around and we had very good relationships with both, in fact, California, with Chile, with Australia. And so we kind of picked and choose a little bit of methodologies, a little bit of best practices that we saw in all of these places. And then we kind of adapted to our own reality. And particularly we used California and Chile because in endophyclimatic terms, so in terms of the weather and the soils, we can see a relation between, in fact, also in the wines of Chile, the wines of California are very bodily, strong, with a very intense personality, and so are the reds of Alentejo. So indeed, there is a line that can be identified not only in the in the ecosystems, but also obviously in the final product, which is in this case the wine. So then, as we created the program, we created something that was with shared goals. So every member of this program has to work in the same line. I like to say we have a like-minded group of people that are also all working towards the same objective. And we also have a very community mind share of everything. Basically, we created this. It's not only a program of best practices, it's a big family of knowledge sharing, which I find quite important, because education is indeed the most important aspect that we can have as a intelligent species, and it's a gift to have to be educated. And so obviously, and you can't just skip education within, you need to share education. That's the most important aspect of it. And so obviously it's not only about making a great performance in your industry and in your house, but it's to also have the maturity and the generosity and the intelligence to share your best practices with everybody else that wants to hear about it. So that's very important for us. Stakeholder engagement also. We also understood that we're not an island, the Regional Winegrowing Commission. So, and we were in fact at this very important and strong catalyzer role to play in the region. So when we started with this sustainability program, basically what I started doing was contacting every kind of stakeholder that would be interested in offering to see, from the Red Cross to the Forest Stewardship Council, to universities, to research organizations, to private consulting, nonprofit organizations. So everybody talks with us, and we put everybody talking with each other, which is really important, again, for this knowledge sharing attitude. It's also a very flexible and adaptive program. I'm a very pragmatic person. I don't believe in extremisms, and I do believe that people need to walk the talk. And the walk, and we have an expression in Portuguese that says "o caminho faz-se caminhando," that pretty much means you set the walk by walking it. And so that's indeed how you should work in this kind of strategies, because obviously not everybody is in the same level of, let's say, understanding or maturity or development. Not everybody has the same kind of financial capacity. Not everybody has the same kind of size of teams. Not everybody has the same objectives. And so we can't just have one number fits all. We have to have a plethora of numbers that will fit every single person that we encounter in every single organization we talk to. So then all of our participants are the end users, okay? So they're not just mere beneficiaries, they're not just there to receive, they are there to receive, but they are there also to give, okay? And this is very much one of the most important, what made this project so strong in terms of the regional popularity. It was indeed the fact that it's almost, I usually mock saying that usually the producers would meet each other in wine exhibitions, and now they also meet in knowledge sharing exhibitions, which is far more important because they're not there to sell their wine, they're there to just learn with each other, which is it's indeed really fulfilling for me. And so we have, as Chile, or pretty much as every renowned sustainability program around the world, it's a self-evaluation system, okay? And we have an accountability system. So on the right side, you have the logos of 4 organizations. So these are certifying bodies, independent certifying bodies. 2 of them international bodies, so Bureau Veritas and SGS. In fact, the SGS is maybe the biggest consulting group in the world in terms of accountability. And then Kiva, Sativa, Certis are 2 more on the regional basis, because I thought that or we thought that it would be important to bring in, you know, international level players, but also regional players, also local people, because that's what also sustainability is all about. Have an integrated approach that has all kinds of people or all kinds of organizations. So these 4 organizations are the ones, and you'll understand a bit later in my presentation, that indeed attribute sustainability third-party stamp that you can actually see in the 3 logos that are on the right corner of the screen. So the Wines of Alentejo, then the sustainability program, then a sustainably produced logo. That logo is only attributed to companies that are eligible for that logo, and for that eligibility they have to go through a screening made by these 4 or one of these 4 organizations. So I ended up talking about the third-party certification, which was the last topic on this slide. So the philosophy of the project, and I've been talking already about it, the empowerment, it's probably the most important part for me. Then obviously the self-governance, not only of the project, because we are independent, we have not been funded by anybody. That's not true. We were funded in the beginning. We applied for some EU funding that we got, but that was for a limited period of 2 years. And this project has been going on for now almost 10 years. So we are pretty much self-governed. And obviously the way we also pass the project onwards to the producers is also in terms of not only empower them, but also to help them to have as much self-governance as possible. And obviously we're in this for the long term. We're not in this for greenwashing. I'm an environmental engineer by trade, and I can't really never distinguish my, João with the suit from João with a t-shirt. It's impossible. And so I'm a consumer also, and I am a bit of a knowledgeable consumer due to what I do. And so I see a lot of greenwashing around everywhere in every kind of products. And so obviously I'm vaccinated against it, and not only against it, but against a lot of other stuff. And so obviously the way we are in this is for the long term. We want one day, and I hope this is by the end of the decade, to be able to say that Alentejo is the sustainability region in Portugal, not only a sustainability region, but the sustainability region in the country. So these are just some examples of some kind of membership, institutionalized membership logo kind of material that we distribute to our producers, which gives them a little bit of that sense of family and sense of belonging to a different kind of group. So this is WASP. This is the project. So the project looks at basically wine and grape growing production almost on a life cycle assessment perspective. It's not obviously life cycle perspective assessment because that would be too detailed and I would probably still be studying that after 10 years, but it's indeed in terms of philosophy, the kind of structure that it should have. So it goes from the beginning. And if you are familiar with programs from other countries, you definitely will see where the inspiration came from in some aspects. So from grape production, soil management, water management, to energy, ecosystems, quality of air, packaging, human resources, community, and socioeconomics. And why did we divide this in three main groups? For a very simple reason. In Alentejo, we have these kind of producers. So we have people who only grape grow. We have cooperatives, which are massive organizations that just process grapes into wine. So they are owned by the associates, so this the cooperants of these organizations. And then obviously we have the grape grower, wine growing organizations that make a bit of everything. And because of that, we could not have a project. Again, one number would not fit all. So we had to create this flexible, adaptable structure that would distribute all of the aspects to be studied and evaluated accordingly to the needs of the producers. So this, we're looking at 18 chapters of work, and each chapter then has a number of what we call criteria of evaluation. And in total, we have 171 criteria of evaluation. So this is a lengthy, dense, to the point, objective, high standards, quality demanding kind of program, okay? And so how has this been working? We started in 2015, and by the end we had 91 members. We had 20% of the total vineyard area of Alentejo. We only had 77 self-evaluations made. We only had 4 partnerships. We had 15 members engaging in partnerships. We had 4 working documents, and we only had 11 chapters. Only had 11 chapters out of these 18 chapters. And why was that? Because when we started this project, many people didn't even have a water flow meter in the vineyard, so they just didn't care. And so you're not going to start talking about, water efficiency or climate change or, ecosystem services when you don't even, care about the water you are spending. So obviously you need to educate again, and you need to sensitize people. So what we decided to do was we divided the program in 2 phases, what we call the initial chapters and the secondary chapters. And why was that? Because in the first chapters, we had a lot of low-hanging fruits, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with the expression, but it's related with immediate, quick results and benefits out of very little investment, out of very little effort. Say a very standard example of that is changing a classic light bulb with a LED light bulb, where you'll have immediately a return on investment and you'll see immediately the benefits of the change. And a flow meter works the same way in reality. So you very quickly, you can understand and educate yourself on how much water you are putting in the soil in that particular point in time. So because of that, by 2015, we only have those 11 chapters open. We had then 108 evaluation criteria. We did 1 knowledge sharing event with 21 people attending, and we communicated 3 initiatives to the world. And then things started growing. And we got to 2021, which is not even in this graph, with almost 460 members. And since then, we jumped to 303 self-evaluations. We have now more than 20 partnerships, where 185 of our members have been engaged. We have 38 working documents, then are all shared with the group, so everybody has access to all of this knowledge produced. We opened the 18 chapters because how we did this was we opened the initial 11 chapters, but we said when you reach this benchmark point, you then have access to the next chapters so that you can have the closure of the project and then eventually be eligible or not for the third-party certification. We have now 171 criteria evaluation. We have done 62 knowledge sharing events in 6 years. We had more than 1,500 participants, and we have trained more than 500 workers of cellars and vineyards throughout Alentejo. We have been engaged in 61 initiatives, and we've been fortunate enough, and this is very humbling, to have been awarded 9 times throughout these 6 years of practical work. So it's more than 1 award a year, which is pretty impressive, if you ask me. So it's been very interesting, steady growth, as you can see. This graph, nevertheless, I always like to say this 42% of area enrolled in the program does not mean we have 42% of sustainable growing vineyard. We mean that we have 42% working for that purpose. Okay, it's a work in progress. It's not the final step yet. So this is the regional analysis that we can do. And I only have 3 years here because it's only in the last 3 years that we have the entire 18 chapters in the field. Because if I had a graph here from 2015 to 2021, it would be a mess because half of the chapters didn't exist. So the graphs would cut in half and it would be a mess. So I decided to, from now on, only show from the last 3 years where you can have a very interesting vision already. And I often say that this, and also mention that what says over there, regional analysis 2.9 out of 4. This means that how this works is we have a rank that goes from 0 to 4. And we deem that the eligible certification level is when you achieve 3.5. And to have 3.5, you need to have 85% of all those 171 criteria in the top level. Okay, so it's not easy. It's very demanding. I'm always been told, why did you do this so hard? You had to. If you want something honest and something real, you have to make it hard. Nothing comes easy in life, I guess. So how does this work? I usually, when I look at this graph, I often say that it looks like a heart pumping because you can see the cloud expands and contracts throughout the years. And that is due to 2 very simple reasons. The first reason is, as this is a continuous improvement process, obviously we expect that with every year of evaluation and of progress, the graph will expand. But at the same time, every year, as you saw in the previous images, you have new members coming in. And it's also expectable that the laggers, so the later entries, will be the ones with the lowest sustainability performance development. So obviously, when you have more people coming in with the lower performance, the cloud will then shrink. But again, it just shows it's alive. It's an alive system that's pumping. And so the future seems very interesting and promising for us. So some results in the last 6 years in terms of water and electricity, we on average managed to assist particularly cellars to reduce in 20% their water consumptions and around 30% their electricity consumption. Some members already have reached the magic number of 1 liter of water per 1 liter of wine. And we have other members which are quite also rewarding because when they started the project, they were on the average of 14 liters of water per liter of wine. And they're now on 5 liters of water per liter of wine. So they still have a long way to go, but 64% less, it's quite impressive and it's quite rewarding. And also, above all, it's, it makes them see it's actually possible. We can actually make this. So, and if the other guys are one-on-one, I'm going to get there. I'm going to get to the one-on-one because I've already did this massive work. In terms of irrigation, also 62% of our members now monitor consumption, which was not the case in the beginning. And almost half of them already have management programs for water irrigation. And bear in mind, Alentejo is, as I said in the beginning, ranks 40 plus degrees in Celsius degrees in summer. Yields of rain are lower and lower, so water is a very scarce resource in Alentejo, and so obviously it's very important to raise awareness on water and water management in the region. Circular economy and recycling is something that we are also investing massively. So we have increasingly increased the rates of recycling, and already almost half of our members are doing composting from the organic matter. And also many of our members are now doing the jump into green purchasing. So more and more producers of ours are choosing for FSC certified components, so that you can find in the corks, you can find it in the packaging, so either the cardboard 6-pack or the fancy wood packaging, or even in the labels that you can put in the back label and front label of the bottle. All of these materials, so they all come from the forest, so obviously they can all be FSC or PFC, doesn't matter. We have a partnership with FSC, so we kind of push the agenda of FSC, but I don't really care at the end of the day. As long as they're green purchase and there's a chain of custody secured, I don't really care what they use, as long as they use some. And so as you can see, from 16% in 2019 to 66% increase in 2021, so it's an impressive number. I pretty much made the FSC, it's a girl, a friend of mine, the FSC director in Portugal. I made her a pop star in the FSC world because they were the first FSC branch to breach into the world of wine. For some reason, FSC was a bit, it was hard for them to breach the world of wine, and they made it with us. And so now she's literally a pop star in the FSC international arena. And even in terms of staff engagement, currently 1 in every 3 members of WASP have a dedicated group to talk about sustainability. So people that have an agenda, people that push an agenda, and people that are considered accountable for that agenda within the organization. And that is something that I remember visiting Chile 4 years ago, and pretty much everywhere I went in Colchagua, I would be presented with a sustainability manager of the vineyard, pretty much everywhere. And that didn't happen in Alentejo, and that does not happen in Portugal. So, to be able to say that now 1 in every 3 of ours have one of these is something that, again, fills me with pride. So obviously, main key messages of what the program aims: saving natural resources, obviously, increase efficiency, because then obviously that will lead to cost reduction, which is, again, that kind of way that the integrated Scandinavian way of looking at sustainability. It all starts from the economy. So in this case, increase efficiency, reduce costs. Obviously, so thriving for circular economy. I apologize for the typo there. I just noticed it. And also biodiversity and resilience. That's hugely important with regard to climate change. So agriculture needs to boost resilience, and agriculture needs to boost regeneration, because I don't think we need to I know, as well as I, or even better, how important the soil is and the ecosystems are, and how the ecosystem services have a massive important role in keeping this industry alive and giving us the great wines that we know today, that will be around for us in 20 years and in 40 years and in 60 years. And obviously also the high social involvement, which is always a part a bit forgotten in the sustainability sphere, always about the environment, but indeed the people are the ones who then will shape the environment. So obviously, and the families that people depend on, and the communities where companies are placed, and where that massive synergy works between depressed region. Alentejo is a depressed region. Actually, Alentejo is going towards desert and desertification. So the summer is coming from Northern Africa. It's coming, and it's already in the Iberian Peninsula, in the southern part of Spain, certain part of Portugal. Regeneration and resilience things are highly important, and at the same time, it's also getting a desertified area in terms of people. People are migrating more and more to the coastline. So obviously, if we have a healthy industry that caters for people, it's an added value to keep people there and to attract people to come in. So awards, these are the awards we've been getting. We got from, European Enterprise Promotion Awards to a European Commission award, which is probably the one I was more happy about, because this European Rural Innovation Ambassador was due to the capacity of creating networks of knowledge sharing. So very important. And so it was all about the education again. As you can see, education is something I deem quite precious. And so this was probably the one that I was more happy to get. Last year, we also got an award from Drinks Business, which is a very popular magazine within the sector. And already in 2021, we got a Deloitte Award, Deloitte Portugal on Sustainability Initiative Award, which is also something that made us very, very proud. Also, we were part of a very interesting study back in 2000 and that was made by this consortium of Scandinavian monopolies of beverages. And they commissioned this sustainable wine certification benchmark study to this consulting group called Intertech. And these are the results. And I do apologize for having the graph in Portuguese, but that also gives a little bit of, a bit of exotic flavor to the presentation. And you can see in these bars, the blue bars are specific wine related schemes. Okay, so you can see the legend in below. You can you have the California Sustainable Wine Alliance, you have the Vinhos del Chile, you have the Lodi rules, you have the Viva from Italy, you have the Vigneron for Development Durable, and so on and so forth. And we were very happily and impressed by understanding that we ranked in the second batch, which then we ranked in the first batch, because by the time that we were evaluated on this score, we did not have at the time our third-party certification. We were still working on it. So from the point that we got the third-party certification, we then contacted them and they, upgraded us to the 11-point group, which, considering that I learned from Chile and California to be able to now be considered a peer by a third-party group was something that really gave us confidence that we were actually doing a really good job, and this was something that was deemed as serious by the sector, which gave us, made us very happy. The SAQ and the LCBO in Canada, which are also two monopoly schemes, they also have accepted our certification into their system. So far, we only have 4 certified members. And this is why, because the certification was only launched in August 2020, and it's not easy to get it. And these 3 producers in this case, which is Herdade dos Groos, Herdade dos Lagos, and Herdade de Coelheiros, they're all small producers. And the problem, not the problem, but the question here is that we are making sure that the entire chain of custody of suppliers of both grape and wine is indeed doing their sustainability bid. And so because of that, we made a lot of, let's call it, rules that oblige the main producers that will want the stamp to put in their bottles, that they will have to engage up to the first guy that sells grapes, to the second guy that then sells grapes, to the third guy that then sells grapes, to the main guy. So for that reason, it's been a bit more difficult for big, those several million bottle producers to be able to get the certification. But the good news is that we decided to come up with this intermediate certification for the own production. So what's within the universe of not purchase outside will be able to be certified. So we hope, and I'm very confident that by the end of 2021, we will have at least 15 to 20 certified producers and many million bottles going into the market with this certification. So this is the evolution, baby. This is how this project has been going for the last almost 10 years. As you can see, it's been fortunately a upwards. We've been climbing the mountain. We started diagnosing it, we engaged, we launched it. We've been doing this continuous improvement and implementation scheme. We started working the certification, we launched the certification, and finally 1 year later, we had our first awarded certified product. And so the night is young, as a friend of mine would say. We're only in the beginning, but indeed the certification is taking its steps, and it's taking its very strong steps. So now, to finish the presentation, I would like to share with you a couple of examples of what I've been talking pretty much. And so these examples are pretty much images that picture a best practice that we promote and that our producers have and do. So this one is a very simple one: water retention from the rain, basically. So we highly suggest that they have little ponds, that they create ponds, they create dams where rainwater can be harvested, or even water from their wastewater treatment plants in the cellars that then can be cleaned and pumped into these ponds, so that they can reuse this water when they need water, instead of going to the underground and taking water from the underground, because that one day will be depleted. And so we need to capture and catch as much water as possible. Hedgerows, we highly and actively suggests that the implementation of hedgerows, in this case, this is a very specific one, because what we want here is to, on one hand, to cut wind, because it's a region that makes a lot of heat and a lot of wind. And so I don't know the English expression, it's a burn. I think it's burn, grape burn, that phenomenon of grape burn. So when the temperature is very high and the wind is very strong, for you to see, 2 years ago, we had it was a week of around 45 degrees, and producers had losses in yield of around 40% just due to the burn. And so promoting this kind of hedgerows helps with the wind, helps with the burn, because it also shades the areas, helps with, you know, auxiliary insects, helps with organic matter, with promotion of biodiversity. So it's a win-win-win-win-win-win-win strategy that should definitely be implemented. You can also see, I'll have another picture, but you can see in the vineyard hedgerow, cover crops also. So obviously it's another, you know, almost basic. It's almost the Neanderthal, the Neolithic of sustainability, agriculture, you know, of regenerative agriculture. It's the cover crops. An example here of FSC material. So in this case, is our own wines, okay, our own bottle, because the Wines of Alentejo, on their main bread and butter activity, you know, controls and certifies wine. So we need to do sampling. So we use a lot of bottles and a lot of corks. And when I started pushing the FSC agenda, I said, look, we need to put our money where our mouth is. So we need to go into, you know, set the example. So since, I guess, 2017, all our corks and all our materials, indeed, all our paper materials, every time we go to a present, you know, a exhibition or whatever, all our contents are all FSC certified products. Ships in the vineyard, it's also something that we actively promote, you know, reduce use of herbicides, reduce dependency of fossil fuel related products. They do a really nice job. They eat whatever they need during the vegetative rest of the vineyard. They even do a little bit of a poo, which also helps adding organic matter to the soil, and you have these beautiful photos that then the producers can use in their marketing material. So it's a 4-in-1 with these little animals. Compost example, in this case, it's a cooperative. So what these guys do is they compost all of their organic matter, all of their organic waste, and then in the end, they bag the fertilizer and they give it, bag as in they bag it, and they give it to their own corporates. So again, reducing the use, in this case, of fertilizers, reducing the use and dependency of fossil fuel derived products, and, you know, doing the circular economy philosophy to the maximum. Energy, software, simple as that. So to understand in real time how is my performance in terms of energy within my organization, so that I can understand what is consuming and where do I need to focus my attentions in order to reduce my cost, to reduce my consumptions, and to increase obviously my efficiency and my cost reduction. Solar panels, you know, one of the highest sun areas in Europe is Alentejo, so it's a no-brainer to use PV. This is a case of PV in the vineyard, to pumping the water to the vineyard. Bat shelters, bat hotels. So bats eat on average around 5 times their weight per night, and they are avid consumers. They have a very, very strong appetite. And so they go out every night and they often eat what we want them to eat, because we then do analysis on their guano, so on their feces, and the DNA analysis shows that they indeed eat what we want. So they go for the bugs that we want, for the pests. And so again, we can reduce the use of pesticides, not to say that we can almost eliminate them. This is actually an organic vineyard that we were watching here. So obviously the bugs, in this case, the insects, the mammals, the bats make a very interesting role in terms of balancing the ecosystem. And it's, again, an ecosystem service at its best. Training on awareness. Okay, it's probably one of the most important aspects of sustainability is continuous awareness of workers. And in this case, it's about saving water, save water, save water, 1 liter to 1 liter, save water, constantly, constantly, constantly. And this is a very interesting example of saving water on another paradox, meaning this is a pond that was actually being filled at the time I took this picture, where they are reusing municipal wastewater. So, and this is something that it's pretty much sci-fi in Portugal, and I'm not really sure about the US actually, because even in the EU, this is something that it's the new policies, but it's not really been implemented so far, which is the cleaning water of our bathrooms and our kitchens that after, properly cleaned is pumped into a pond of a producer and then it's pumped into the vineyard, okay? So this is part of the future, ladies and gentlemen, okay? Because we are wasting a lot of water right now, and it's perfectly usable water that can be reused infinitely, okay? Recovery of streamlines, the the rivers and the streams are to the earth as the veins are to our body. And if we clog a vein, just wait a couple of hours to see what happens to the rest of the body. And so obviously, why should we do it to the planet? Why should we do it to our field? And indeed, we did it a lot. And so part of what we also support is the recovery of ecosystems, the recovery and the regeneration of streams and water lines, because then that will obviously allow, on one hand, when it rains, for the water to get wherever it needs to go, and on the other hand, to be used and to also to attract other kinds of fauna that will be very useful in terms of the vineyards. And I'm almost finishing my presentation. I really like this picture here because to me it encapsulates sustainability, and I'll explain, or at least according to the classic concept of economy, social and environment. Why? This is an event we have in Lisbon, in Portugal, called the Wines of Alentejo in Lisbon, and I invite you all. If you want to come to Lisbon, it's around September every year, and we have more than 880 producers in this event where people go and they pretty much don't pay and they just taste wines of Alentejo all afternoon. And what's so interesting about this photo? So you have on one hand the economic aspect of sustainability because it's a marketing event, okay? And then you can see these little boxes here at the top, these wood boxes. So what are these? These boxes are bat shelters. And what are they made of? They are made of waste wood boxes from vineyard producers. So what I did was I asked the producers if they want to donate waste boxes that they had there. They said yes. With every 5 boxes, you can make 1 bat shelter. And then we brought it into the spot, and we had this little sustainability corner where people could drop their kids. And we had the biologists there that would educate the children on ecosystem services, and at the same time using, hydrocarbon-free inks, the children would paint the boxes, and then in the end the boxes were given back to producers and are now actually in the field being occupied by bats. So you have the 3 aspects of sustainability encapsulated in the same picture. And to finish, a cover crop, a beautiful cover crop with this kind of where is this going kind of attitude, right? And I would like to leave you with this Sri Lankan saying that I once heard that I really believe encapsulates what sustainability is, because this is no sci-fi, this is no rocket science, and this is nothing some guy just remembered 20 years ago. This has been around since pretty much humanity exists. So may the rains come in time, which is obviously the environmental aspect of it. May the crops be plentiful, which is the economic aspect of it. And may the people be happy, which is the social aspect of it. So this is sustainability. Thank you very much. I hope that you enjoyed the session, and let's do it. And back to you, Antoinette.
Wow, bravo, bravo. This was an incredible presentation, but also very important for us to understand the Wines of Alentejo, how powerful this program is, how comprehensive it is, and how equal it is. One of the key components that came up time and time again was the understanding of the different sizes of the producers that you're working with. And as sustainability moves forward, one of the questions is, and I'll go ahead and pose it to you, how are the smaller producers who are obviously less financially liquid going to be able to keep up with the larger producers who are able to fund their sustainability programs a little bit more generously? In your opinion, how do you think that will unfold?
Well, I think that first of all, on average, they don't operate in the same markets. They have different target consumers. So on average, the large producers make their fortune on very low price wines. Then they have obviously their boutique wines and their more fancy 100,000 bottle But then you have these small producers which are targeting either the good wine houses or the restaurants. And so, and they can also put an added value on their price entry range wine. So on one hand, I think there's enough space for all of them to live because of this reasoning. But at the same time, and this is something really important about sustainability in my perspective, of course, is that you really don't need the money. You just need the will often and the time. And you need to really set up your priorities. Because obviously, if you have a team of 3 people and your priority is to sell wine, of course, you don't have time to go train your staff or raise their awareness or go buy the flow meters or talk to the power company and say, look, we really need to renegotiate our fees because the other guy is giving me a cheaper price and can be with green energies. So this is part of the thing. You need to really kind of restart or reshuffle and think, so what's my priority? What do I really want to do in my life and my business? Obviously, then having said that, investment is also required. But again, for you to see one of our 3 first certified producers, it's an organic producer. It's a very small company that doesn't have that much money. And one day we were talking and they literally said that to me. They said, look, we don't do advertising. We put the money in hedgerows, So then nobody knows who we are, because I was saying to them, it's such a shame that nobody knows what you guys are doing here. And they said, yeah, because we are doing it. We're busy doing it. So I think it's a bit on that line of thought that we can consider these aspects.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Thank you again for this incredible presentation. We're really overjoyed to have had Wines of Alentejo be a part of the Sustainability in Wine Country series. Before we say goodnight and before I say my final words, do you have any final words that you would like to share with the group?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for the invitation, and I would like to commend on the organization because it was top. It was really, really professional and really, I was very, very in a good way. So thank you again for that. And to say that, I welcome everybody in Alentejo if you have the opportunity to one day come. It's a lovely, lovely region. It's considered to be the Patagonia of Europe because it's a unspoiled area of Europe. And I'd like to finish saying something, sharing with you something that I once heard from a journalist that was talking to me, a French journalist, that talking about the program. And in the end, they said to me, wow, you're like a tiny region doing the work of giants. And when she said that, I'm like, oh, wow, yeah, that's true. Because yeah, it was 0.6% of the world, as we saw. And California is the 9th, for example. California is the 9th economy in the world. Chile is the longest country in the world, and Australia is a continent. And we're just a little small region doing, kind of the same stuff. So that was kind of a very interesting metaphoric way of putting it. So just to say that, if you guys end up finding some Wines of Alentejo in the shelves and you see that little logo, just think about this chat we had and think that it might be a good idea to support that kind of company rather than the guy next door that's probably the same price, probably the same style, but it's not making effort. So yeah, that would be my main message. And thank you very much.
Absolutely, yes. And I support fully the invitation to go visit Alentejo. It's absolutely a beautiful, wonderful area. The people are incredibly warm and welcoming. The food is extraordinary and the wines are spectacular. So thank you to all for joining us. Please go visit Alentejo. And we look forward to featuring our next Sustainability in Wine Country event next week, hosted by the Jackson Family Wines. Access to past masterclasses that we've hosted in this series may be found on our YouTube page, Cork and Fork, as well as by scanning the QR code presented in our location here in Washington, D.C. at the checkout. That QR code will take you directly to the recordings on YouTube. Additional program details for upcoming events may be found on our website, www.corkandfork.co, under calendar. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you for your time in your presentation tonight. And I wish you a lovely evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.